Okay, welcome to part 4 of our Core Content for Salesforce series. Today we're going to take a look into setting up a connected workspace in Core Content and connect it to a Salesforce business object. Here, this is the agenda that we prepared for today's session. So we'll take a look at the documentation, so where to find all the documentation that is necessary in order to get this done. Then we're switching into core content, setting up a connected workspace, defining a folder structure, switching over to Salesforce, check a couple things over there to make sure that everything is the way it's supposed to be. And then we're going to test, so meaning we're going to create a new business object in Salesforce, which then should create automatically a business workspace in core content. And if that all works well, that will then conclude our session. Okay, so let's move on into the documentation. I'll bring that up right here. So in support, OpenText Support Portal, you can find all the documentation necessary. So here in particular, for our interest is the Administrator Guide for Core Content for Salesforce 24.1. And let's open this as the HTML guide. And let's collapse here, and then we're just going to focus here on the Salesforce portion of this documentation. So you've probably seen this before in the other installments of the series. We've extensively used the documentation. So today we're going to take a look into this section here, which is part of the Solution Accelerator. And if you recall from the previous session, we installed the Solution Accelerator in Salesforce, and that basically provides us with the framework that we now use then to create the connected business workspace in core content. So we're going here, and 6 here, that's essentially what we want, create workspace type in core content administration. So it's pretty straightforward. It doesn't get any simpler than this. So, and when I walk you through it, it's all going to make sense. But here it's basically all documented just for reference. Okay. Let's move into core content. So let's sign in here. And I think this will bring us here into Admin Center, and we need to go then into the subscription area of core content to get this all set up. Okay, here we go. It takes a couple clicks to go there. There are also direct links, so you can basically create a shortcut to your core content subscription. Then you automatically get here rather than the long way around. Okay, the admin section, and once we are there, then we can get started. So again, this is very simple once everything is connected, and from the previous videos, you know, basically we set everything up. We set the OAuth connections, we set the SAML authentication, so which are basically all essential necessary for this task to take place. Okay, in the admin center here, workspace types. So we can move to the workspace types, and that's where we basically spend the majority of time today setting up a new connected workspace type. And to do so, select here Add, and then there are a couple of options presented to us, so workspace type or then a connected workspace type. So that's very important that we select here connected workspace type, because we want to connect this workspace type then to a leading application. In our case, we're going to connect it with Salesforce. Okay, so that's what we select here. And then a good name, so let's set it up for an account. So for a Salesforce account, so I just call here the name CRM account, and a brief description. This is Okay, so now we also need to select here a location. So the location is basically underneath your enterprise folder in core content. There's already a subfolder structure there. And since we are dealing with accounts, they probably most likely will fall into an area like sales. I'll select here sales. And what this does then, it basically creates inside sales. In that folder, it then creates basically a business workspace for every account that we have on the Salesforce side, if we choose to do so. Okay, select. All right. If you want, if you need, you can also change here the workspace icon. I just leave it as the standard, but as by default. Next is we're going to select the connection with system, which is going to be Salesforce. Now here the connection. And you remember this from our previous session, the PM01 OAuth connection that we've set up and extensively debugged in order to make it work. And now everything is connecting. We'll get this list of business object types from Salesforce. So that's really where core content reaches in Salesforce and fetches the configuration out of Salesforce. And here we select account. And now we need to define for this workspace type a naming pattern. And in order to this can either be static, so we can basically put in static text, but that probably is less desirable than we want to have something more like dynamic. So basically use Salesforce data to create a workspace name and then also amend it with something to make a workspace name unique. So to find what kind of parameters or placeholders can be used, for that we have to go into Salesforce, and let's just do this. So we log in here into Salesforce, and then we are switching into admin, into the admin center of the Salesforce integration. And on the workspace business object types, we're selecting here account. That's for what we configure. View. And then on the related, we find here these business object properties. So this is essentially, these properties are essentially what Salesforce sent over to core content, and then what core content is using to create an example now, this business workspace name. So for us, we're going to use account name. So we want to use here the account name. Just copy this for now. And the placeholder needs to be in square brackets, Ctrl-V, and then space, dash, and another set of square brackets. And now we want to use as well the account ID. So here, that's the property field, account ID, Ctrl-C. And I'm going to paste this in here. All right. By the way, this is also here in the documentation mentioned, so create a unique name for Salesforce Workspace. So you can see exactly here, this is basically this naming concept that we apply here as well for our example. But I just wanted to show where you can get these workspace naming patterns from, so these placeholders. And in your environment, you may have additional business object properties that you may want to synchronize to core content. You can, if you choose so, you have to configure them obviously here. And then if you want them to use them as well as the part of the business workspace name, you have to also to add them here in the workspace type accordingly. Okay, so this is most of it. So now we're not going to care about attribute, roles, and permission templates. Next is we're going to create a template, basically a folder structure, and we're going to add this new folder structure here. But first, I think it wants us to save what we already have, which is a good thing, I guess. All right, there we go. So now it suggests here name. So, and just for clarity, we want probably to align this with the workspace type name. So it will be CRM account, and then business. Okay, now with the plus sign, we can now start creating our folder structure. This is just something over the years I got accustomed to lead it with the 01 example, and then account management. But that's not necessarily that you lead it with a numeric. You cannot just start with an example account management, but I like it with having these numbers. Then you can more easily sort this then afterwards in the business workspace. Okay, now let's add a couple more folders here. That would make sense for an account workspace. That would be then 02 meetings. Okay, let's add one more. 03 dash correspondence. Okay, all right. So let's save this folder template. And very important now is we have to basically publish this template, so make it active so that it becomes active for the business workspace. Okay, publish. Okay, all right, let's go back here. So we created here the name. We have here a short descriptions, defined the location, the connection settings to the business object. We skipped attributes, rules, and permission templates. And we defined here our folder structure. And you can see basically the folder structure is something that is versioned. That means over time, if my requirements change, I can come back here and create a new folder structure, a new version of a folder structure. And then any business workspace from there on forward will adopt this new folder structure if you wish to do that. So good. From a core content perspective, I think this is all we need to do here. Now let's go to check here really quick in Salesforce, and in Salesforce we wanted to do, I'm gonna bring up the slide here. Moment. Okay, in the Salesforce side we want to check the solution accelerator, the business object triggers, and then also enable the log, so that we see what's going on, what is being sent from Salesforce to core content. Okay. All right, solution accelerator. So we installed that, as you may recall from the previous session. I think that was session 1. If we go now install packages, you can see that in the installed packages what has been installed in your org. And here we go, this is the content services of Salesforce, and then the core content for Salesforce extension package, and then on top the CRM Solution Accelerator. And remember, Solution Accelerator is basically a free of charge tool that we provide to just get a jump start. One word of wisdom here to add is basically it's fine to install the Solution Accelerator into a dev org or in a Scratch org, or to get to see what basically how things are set up. But then if you're moving into your dev and in your production landscape, this is probably not something that you want to install in your production landscape. So in other words, you basically want to copy the pieces that you need from the Solution Accelerator, copy paste that then into your dev, and then from there on you can move it forward with a transport package into your QA and into your production environment, just to basically not create unnecessary complexity bit with having this Solution Accelerator in the in the production environment. We oftentimes, the solution accelerator may change over time, and if you basically then install the solution accelerator again in your org, in order to do so, you have to basically remove first, and then you can reinstall, which will basically then remove all your customizations that you made to your solution accelerator. So that's probably a no-go. Okay. Next, we basically want to create business workspace for account. So how does that work? So when we create an account, there needs to be happen something on the Salesforce side that lets us, that basically invokes our integration in Salesforce. And this is something that is done via a so-called object trigger. And you can find these object triggers if we go here into the object manager, and for our business object, which is account, you can see them right down here, triggers. And there's already XECM account trigger. And this XECM account triggers comes as part of the solution accelerator. So again, it's fine for a scratch org or for a dev org, but for a production environment, this trigger here is probably not very well equipped, because you want to take the code that is here provided here as a template and incorporate that code into your own trigger logic that you may have already set up in your org, because we don't understand what kind of business rules you have in order for these triggers to fire. So also what we would suggest here is to encapsulate those triggers into conditions to make sure that they only fire in certain conditions. An example, if a field that is relevant to be synchronized to core content, that the trigger only fires then. It doesn't make sense to fire the trigger all the time. It would basically just do one thing. It will just clutter up the queue tables, which then our synchronization process determines, okay, it's not something that need to be synchronized, and then discards it from the queue table. So you can basically save this already and only fire the trigger when necessary. And just to be absolutely clear here, if we go back to the documentation, look for trigger. Here are all the triggers that come with the solution accelerator. They are documented here, and how they basically need to be used within your environment. Okay, back to Salesforce. So now that we checked that the trigger is here, so we can assume now when we would create a new account in Salesforce that it will send off then make necessary API calls to core content to create the necessary business workspace. But before we do that, we'll go here into our admin section again, logs. And we want to configure the log, because if something doesn't work, for whatever reason the business workspace is not created, then the only way to figure out what's going on is via the log. So, okay, we're going to set this here for debug. Let's say 10 minutes retention. So what this means is that each log entry is basically retained for 10 minutes, so meaning the automatic log purge process checks this table every so often, and everything that's older than 10 minutes is basically removed from the log. And with that, we can keep basically this log table somewhat in a reasonable size. And in a production environment, after it's stabilized or whatsoever, you may want to disable logging altogether. Okay, so that's all there is. So we don't expect here any logs at the moment. Now we can go back here and let's select here. We're going now in the user side of the house in Salesforce. And we said, okay, let's create here a new account. And okay, let's call this account test CRM account, And just leave the other fields blank. We don't necessarily need those yet. And I can now click on save. What this does, it basically creates us a new account, and here we are in the account. We're looking at this new account that we just created. And one thing you notice here, we have the standard tabs, the related, the detail tab, and then this new tab, documents, which is also part that comes as part of the solution accelerator. So we have here our own page template that comes as part of the solution accelerator and is applied. In case you don't have that, you can apply this the page template easily from here. You can just go here into the cogwheel, edit page. And then we can select, you may have up here then something different selected, but here it already says OpenText account lightning page. So you can select here the corresponding page template that need to be applied. In case you have something different here, save it and then activate it, and this will make it then the standard, or you can choose to make it org default or just application default for the sales application, for example. Okay, let's go back here. Just wanted to show you in case that looks different than what you have then in your environment. Okay, so now what I would expect when clicking here on the Documents tab, it will basically launch the Business Workspace widget and display the Business Workspace that we just created here. Okay, it's going to take a few seconds to load. Here we go. And this actually looks very promising. There we go. So this looks to me like the business workspace that we just create the workspace type for in core content. It looks very much like what we just did over there. So that's basically how it looks here in Salesforce, and we can get to see the same as well here if we switch over to core content, switch to the enterprise location. Now we can see basically here a difference. So a folder that is blank is basically where there's no items, nothing in there, shown as a blank folder, and then if there's something inside that folder, sales, it's a solid folder. And if I open now this folder sales, we see here that there is basically now this business workspace test CRM account. So that's our our account name in Salesforce dash, and then the Salesforce object ID to make it unique, as we specified this in the business workspace in the workspace type template. Okay, so I think that looks good. As I said, so this doesn't get any easier than that to set up a business workspace and connect it to Salesforce and to get it work. So you saw it's less than 10 minutes. If we go back here, an example, take a look at the debug logs. And in here you can clearly then also see an example if in your case, if something would not work for whatever reason, that's basically where you would go and then try to figure out what might be the issue. Just an expert tip here, so set it to 100 to 100 result set, and then also wrap text, and you get to see everything in here. You don't have to click in each individual log message, but here you can basically see what's happening. And then I can just find here test CRM account, and so here we go. So this is basically the call that is made to core content, which then provides here the account name and any other properties that are defined as part of the business object configuration in Salesforce. It sends it over to core content, and core content is using then this information to create a corresponding business workspace. Okay, so there's not much more to say here. So again, if you have if your system has issues here, that's the place to go where you can get at least indicators of what might be the problem, and then go back and fix it and get it to work this way. So in other words, debug your configuration via this provide this log. Okay, I think this sums it pretty much up, how we configure a Workspace template, connect it to Salesforce, and then do the necessary thing on the Salesforce side and to test it out, create a new account, or whatever then the business object is that you may configure. It's always going to be the same for case, opportunity, whatever it is. It's basically always following the same schema. Okay. With that, let's go here to the session outline. So we just covered all these areas here, testing and troubleshooting. So there was nothing to troubleshoot per se, so everything worked as expected. And I would not expect anything less than that in your environment when you configure this. Which leaves me basically now with thank you for your time. And any additional information you can find here in the Salesforce resource sections in Knowledge Center, available to our customers, our partners equally. Thank you for your time and talk to you next time.